Hey, good evening, everybody. Thank you all for joining. My name is Sierra Jackson, and I'm the president of the Maryland Music Business Society. And today we're going to be holding our women's music discussion along with Amplify Her Voice. So before we get into our discussion, I would like to give everyone a chance to introduce themselves. So to start it off, I will pass it off to Kristina London, who's here with Amplify Her Voice.
Hello. My name is Kristina. I'm a born and raised Marylander. Went to the University of Maryland, and I'm the founder of Amplify Her Voice, which is a grassroots initiative that champions gender equality in the music industry. Um, and I also spearhead content and touring at Live Nation Women.
Thank you so much. Jen, we can pass it off to you next if you'd like.
Great. I am Jen Bell. I'm the co-director of booking at I.M.P in Washington, D.C. So we handle booking the Atlantis, 930 Club, Lincoln Theater, Merriweather Post Pavilion, and the Anthem. And I handle the sole booking for 930 Club and Lincoln.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Carly, would you like to introduce yourself next?
Sure. Hi, guys. I'm Carly Wakefield. I am also a born and bred Marylander, but went to Pace University in New York, so I am New York based now. And I'm at Spotify on the music team under a team called Promotion Product Specialists. We essentially bridge the gap between our product teams and our music industry partners. So I'm working directly with management and labels and artists, as well as, our engineers, our data scientists to develop products that help the music industry.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Shannon, I'll pass it off to you next.
Hi, I'm Shannon. Born and raised in Southern California, kind of like on the outskirts of Los Angeles. Honored to be here. I work in publishing. I'm an A&R director at Pulse Music Group based in LA. Mainly handle the rap, hip hop, and R&B roster. Um, I feel like publishing is kind of a not niche, but not a lot of people know about it as part of the music industry and business. But essentially, I work with songwriters and producers, link them with artists. So I pitch, create sessions, and yeah, thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much. Kath, and we can pass it off to you next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Catherine Hooper. I am also born and raised in Maryland, specifically Baltimore, Maryland, and I'm a proud alum of University of Maryland as well, and also was part of Maryland Music Business Society way back in 2009. So the very, very early years of the group. I currently am based in Los Angeles, California, and I work at AG Presents on our partnership activation team, which that just means that I work with various brand partners for all of our different festivals, including Coachella, Stagecoach, and Camp Logna.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So next we have Simonne, if you'd like to pass it off.
Hi guys, nice to meet you. My name is Simonne. I am in Los Angeles. I work at Rock Nation, which is an artist management company, and manage very various artists and do a whole slew of things that I would probably need a lot more time to run through top to bottom. So feel free to ask questions because I'm here to answer them. But yeah, everything under the sun in management.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So now that you all heard from our lovely panelists, I'm going to get into the discussion for today. So the first question that I have for you all is, what inspired you to pursue a career in the music industry?
I can start. I'm from Texas. I'm from San Antonio, Texas, and I went to school at University of Texas at Austin. And when I was in college, I was actually an aerospace engineering major, because I thought that was what I wanted to do. And I feel like you can go into college not really always knowing what your passion is or what you really want to do, just like it's the next step. You're kind of trained after high school. And I feel like being in college, and just being exposed to different things, I really understood what I was really passionate about, and it was music. It was live entertainment. So I just started applying to any internship I possibly could, and just kind of getting in front of people that had jobs that I was really inspired to want to do and just learn as much as possible. But I think at the end of the day, it just came down to having a passion to create live events.
I can second you on that and just say I just remember being in the exact same position. I remember being in college. I went to University of Colorado in Boulder, and I just remember being studying psychology because it felt like the most universally useful tool at the time, but not necessarily knowing what I wanted to do because there's a lot of options. And I remember I'm from Chicago originally, and I remember being at um, a Lollapalooza event, and I remember all of my friends kind of just partying, doing the thing that you do at the festivals. And I had found myself just like really enamored with what was going on stage, and was like, I have to be the only person I know in my friend group here that's being like, how do they get this production set up together? Like, how do they bring this whole thing to life? And I was thinking about it critically. And then at the time, I was at a school in a program that did not offer a music program. And so I actually went ahead and helped create at the time a program that did something along these lines that brought in music representatives. And I think like just being able to make connections like this and foster those connections are really what got me super excited about all the different avenues, as you can see from the awesome ladies on here, that you can take in the industry, which was really cool. Sometimes you find things you're in college and you're like, okay, am I going to be a doctor? It's only a doctor. Like if I'm going to be a lawyer, it's only a lawyer. It's like in music, there's just so much creative bandwidth to play with. That I got really inspired by and realized that really it is just fostering amazing connections like this that can take you to places you never knew.
I'll segue from that because I actually grew up on the lawn of Meriwether Post Pavilion. Shout out Jen. But my first festival was Sweet Life in 2011, and that was when Sweet Green, the literal salad restaurant, had a festival that they produced and promoted. Um, and it changed my life. I think live events is funny enough is a lot of the reason a lot of people that I work with got into the music industry. But I come from a theater background as well, and I always really liked the community-based aspects of doing theater. Um, Decided shortly before I was going to figure out where I was going to college that I didn't want to do it professionally, but music has been a big part of my life, my whole life, and it was just I don't want to say the next best thing, it was the equal best thing. So um, ended up going to school in New York and plenty of opportunity here, obviously, for internships, but ended up falling into an internship in festival production, and that's how I kind of got started.
I love that. My first festival was Sweet Life 2014. I think that was the one Lana Del Rey was headlining, so it was very full circle to see her come back in 2023 for All Things Go. It's interesting hearing, well, being an aerospace engineer major is kind of crazy, and then to work in music. Um,
Just
I
goes
feel
to
like
show you never know.
I know that's so fascinating. My only goal was to ever work in music. I don't know where the confidence came from to have that as my only plan. I never had a plan B. I just knew I wanted to be part of something that I was really passionate about. And luckily, it's worked out so far. I was a comm major at the University of Maryland. I remember when I was 17, I picked the most general possible thing. I'm like, if music doesn't work out, I'm a comm major, so I could work in general marketing or whatever. Yeah, literally. There's so many comm majors in music, I swear. Um, and yeah, I feel like I also grew up a musician and I played piano, bass, and drums and ukulele. And I think a lot of people who work in music really kind of have that start, that like love for playing music or just listening to music and having that connection. But yeah, that's it.
Also guilty, another comm major. So I attended Cal State Long Beach. they didn't have a music business major at the school. So comm was my, I guess, way into trying to figure out exactly what I was wanting to do. But yeah, I didn't really fall into learning about the music stuff until my friend who and I, like, we both shared the same music taste and he wanted to be an artist. And he was like, "Will you manage me?" And I was like, "I literally have no idea what that means, but like, sure." And it was like college, and I was like, why not? Let's just do it, see what happens, and just go for it. So that was kind of like my main um like segue or gateway into music. And so that was when you're really learning from the ground level, like exactly how everything's connected, who to hit up, everything. Management is no joke. That didn't last very long. I was just like, we both didn't know what we were doing. He got picked up by a bigger manager, which I was like, thank God, like you really deserve someone else. But yeah, I learned about publishing through that. And that's kind of like how I got my foot in the door to music was shifting gears into that, figuring out who's hiring for internships, and basically that's how I landed in publishing, and I've been in it ever since that pulse.
I guess I should go. I'm the last one. Yeah, so I actually have, or like many of the other panelists, I have a background or just like various experiences with music. I'm classically trained in flute. I sing in children's choirs. I went to Baltimore School for the Arts. And then ultimately, when it came time for me to decide college, I just like wanted, I guess, like a more normal school experience, if that makes sense. So University of Maryland has a really great music program. I have my Bachelor of Arts in Music. I did communication as a double major because I went into college knowing that I didn't want to be a performer, but didn't really know like what else I was good at. Comms made sense. So I was like, I like reading, I like writing. Let's do this. So after I had finished my time at Maryland, I moved back home to Baltimore for a little bit, worked in a couple of different venues, including Merriweather, also Ram's Head Live, worked at there, eventually packed up, moved to LA. I will save you all of the drama of moving to LA in your early 20s and kind of figuring things out. But within the last several years, I landed in partnerships pretty organically, if that makes sense. And so, what I'm doing now in my current role, has been doing for the last several years, is really a culmination of all of the things that I've done from, selling merch at a venue to having, even worked security in a venue, marketing experience, just everything. I almost every day pull from all of those experiences and they inform the work that I do at some of the largest festivals around. So.
Thank you, guys. So into our next question, one that I feel is very important, especially in light of recent times. So I just want to know, what challenges have you guys faced as, women in the industry? And, how did you guys overcome those certain issues? How did you keep your head up? What advice you have for young women who are working within this industry and trying to get their foot in the door and, really build their connections and their careers?
I want to say that I think that the younger generation, the up and coming generation that's coming into music, you guys actually hold so much more weight than you even realize, because the music industry has been changing so much in the last couple of years. And you can see those shifts high level, like we all saw in the media how major labels basically wiped house this last year and redeveloped how they operate in their building and shifted a lot of energy into marketing and digital marketing and just invigorating, I think, the energy inside of their building to understand the landscape that media works with right now, which is different than it was before because we are in a different generation and there's so many new tools that a lot of us, as I would say, we grow and experience in our musical ventures. We don't necessarily have time to stay tapped into how it's developing, and the younger generation really just knows what's going on, knows how to work it and how to utilize it where it makes sense and how not. And that really helps with, all everything under the sun, especially with, speaking with management alone, like, we work day in and day out with artists. We're constantly trying to tailor ways to connect with new fans. It always changes and we always need new ideas. So when it comes to challenges that you face, I think it's just knowing your worth, really, really going in and knowing your worth. And there, you're always going to face as a woman, walking in and being presented in situations where it doesn't even mean there's a male in charge or a female in charge, but somebody that might make you feel like you're not there yet. But just because something's not on your resume doesn't mean that what you don't bring to the table isn't extremely valuable and that your ideas don't matter or anything like that. So I would just say, making connections, like I already said before, really fostering those connections, finding people that want to support you, knowing that internships are so important. Like I find every bit of power that I have in my growth as where I am now and as an individual and a female from my internships, because you really have the opportunity and less of an expectation to like perform a certain way in a role, to go out and make sure that you touch every avenue of the company that you want as an intern, and you are in charge of what you take away from it. And I remember being really young and working with other interns that were like just wanted the day to go by. They just wanted the internship on their resume. And then there were others like myself that were like, no, how often do you get a chance to be in a building like this and actually make this a real relationship, not just a transactional moment with this person? And a lot of those people I'm still extremely close with and I've utilized throughout my entire career. So I would just say, know your worth, make the connections, keep them strong, and just know that just because this is you jumping out of college into your next big thing doesn't mean that you are just as important as every other person at the table.
I totally agree, Simone. I feel like imposter syndrome is something that not just as women, but especially as a young woman in the music industry, it still prevails over my literal everyday interactions. I'm always worried that I'm not enough for the room. Something that has really helped me with that has been seeking out other female mentors in the industry who are a little bit older than me, a little bit more experienced, who I can just use as sort of a sounding board when I need a sanity check. Um, Unfortunately, and I agree, I think the tide is turning quite a bit. But, you're gonna be in rooms where you're gonna be made to feel like you don't know enough. You're gonna be in rooms where you're made to feel like your ideas aren't valid because maybe someone doesn't get them. Um, but I think having someone whose career path that you really admire, someone who you really trust and have built a relationship with, to commiserate with, to, bounce ideas off of, and to learn from, just so you feel like you're not as um, alone in your feelings and your thoughts. And it's just someone who, you know, has that experience and is able to offer, um, more seasoned advice.
I couldn't agree more with both of you. I feel like being underestimated is something that women face a lot in general and in music, and whether it's in meetings or behind the scenes, I feel like it's just important to let your work speak for itself. I think there's a lot of personalities in this industry, and you don't have to be the loudest person in the room to make an impact. And that's something I really hold on to. I'm not a natural, as I get older, I'm not a natural extrovert like I used to be. I'm definitely more introverted, which doesn't mean I'm like shy. I just like need my alone time, and I'm not just like out there like a typical like entrepreneur type person. And I think that's okay. And I think the industry needs people who are compassionate and empathetic and listen and really reflect what an audience or a culture is saying, and provide solutions for it. And I also think what Carly was saying about mentorship is really, really important. I did the She's Music Mentorship Program 4 years ago. I loved it. I was matched up with Amy Davidman at TBA Agency. I don't know if anyone knows her, but she's literally the best. And
She's
having
awesome.
someone, she's literally the best. Everyone find an Amy. Um, it was so validating for the first time, in creating Amplify Her Voice and not knowing if it's cool or if it's like important or if it's like as important as it is to me as it would be to everyone else, and having someone validate my thoughts and my ideas was just like monumental. She I needed a full-time job in music 4 years ago. She told me to apply to Golden Voice and sent me the link, and I did it, and I got that job. She sent me a link to submit myself for Forbes 30 under 30 almost 2 years ago. I did it, and I was honored as a 30 under 30 person. And so much of this you can get in your head sometimes and not like shoot your shot. And having that person that, what did you say, Carly, was like the soundboard or whatever, someone to just like bounce these things off of and really validate you, I think is so important.
Yeah, I mean, they've all said it basically entirely. I think that, when I got started in this industry, it was 2007. It felt like such an extremely different environment coming in as a woman, to be honest, because it was so male dominated. And there have been tremendous strides that have happened since then, which is great. I think that the biggest thing that helped me was kind of like what Simonne said, like going into your internship with intention, like not just having it be a check off the list to put onto your resume, but like making connections with everybody that you meet there. Because I started interning at Red Light Management when I moved to LA, and I'm still friends with all of them. And that was like 13 years ago. And to be honest, it was like, okay, doing your job and getting there, but then also hanging out after work. Like, do you want to go get a drink? Like, kind of establishing a relationship and having somebody see you that way and trust you that way so that they think of you when other opportunities come in. And I think one thing I know you deal with so many different personalities in this industry that having and learning and having the ability to kind of work with different personalities and be seen with different personalities and communicate with them has been, I think, the biggest thing for me that's allowed me to succeed, because there are just so many different sorts of people that you work with, and being able to kind of work and mold with each of them and have them trust you is a great thing. And I think women are really good at that.
Okay, thank you, ladies. So for our next question, I want to ask you guys, what advice would you give to someone who's trying to stand out when they're applying for jobs in the music industry? Like what specific key aspects or assets do you guys have that people should put down on their resumes, or even that you feel like have helped you excel in your careers? And Catherine, I'd love to start with you if you like.
Yeah, for sure. I have struggle a little bit with what to put down on your resume, for just like things to help you stand out. And the reason is because for most of the jobs that I've had, it's literally been through connections. I just like always struggle with telling people that, just because you like, especially in the early parts of your career, you kind of like want a thing, you want someone to kind of give you this formula and be like, okay, if I do A, B, C, D, then I'll be able to do E, F, G, etc. I did do a lot of internships, so that definitely was helpful. And that was one of the ways that I was able to start building my network. I think that's a common theme, that all of the other panelists have mentioned so far in our discussion, is that like building your network is really important, and realizing that your network is not just the people that you might be reporting into at these internships or people that are in other departments, but literally the other interns that you have. So that would be really my biggest piece of advice, especially as you're starting out and starting to think about how you're going to apply for things and what you're going to do. If there are people like within organizations that you are a part of, whether that's Maryland Music Business Society or wherever you are viewing this panel today. Definitely reach out to your peers and to your network and let that be something that helps you either get that first internship or job, and also be someone who's teachable, because you get into the door, you learn how to do whatever intern type of thing, and someone's going to want to hire you for whatever that next step is if they feel as though you're someone who could learn whatever it is that needs to be done. So even if you're the marketing intern and you somehow end up helping out with ticketing and you take to that, maybe ticketing is what gets you to that next thing. That might not be like your end goal, but like it's getting you to your next thing to get you to wherever you ultimately want to go to.
Yeah,
Yeah,
also
and
to
you,
just, oh, sorry.
no, go.
Yeah, I was just gonna add to that and say like, for the people too who haven't, or I guess what, like who haven't majored, I mean that's most of us too, who haven't majored in like a music business major or minor at their school. At least for me, I got a little bit creative in terms of just like looking up internships, trying to like create resources. I was in Long Beach, which is technically LA County, but it's far from the city. So I'd always be making the trek to be in the city, try to be like going to shows, making like meeting new people, and also just at the same time while I'm doing that is just like looking online, even using like on LinkedIn, like where I went, Cal State Long Beach, to find out like alumni that were working in music at record labels or publishing companies, and kind of use that cold reach out to them. Honestly, I did a lot of cold reach outs, just because my school didn't have like the resources to connect me to people. The closest I got was maybe like marketing, but there were barely any people who were connected in the music industry. So it was a lot of research online and seeing how I could get into contact with these types of people. Definitely used like my role as a student to an advantage, saying like I would love to, like this was for internships. I would love to like come and like meet with you, maybe interview you for like a project or something. And kind of that's what got me through the door. And then I also brought like that cold reach outs to my position at Pulse. It was kind of crazy, but just in a short story, I basically called the front desk and I like made a list of publishing companies, and I called the front desk and was like, "Are you hiring any admin positions?" Because I knew I wanted to be an A&R, but if that's always like a hard I like you really have to know people. So I decided to just try and get my foot in the door through like an admin opportunity. And then that same day, a position opened up when I called. So it was really just like, yeah, that was like such a crazy time. And it was really just preparation, doing my research on companies, having goals of, what places I want to reach out to. And yeah, like I was competing with people who went to like USC and UCLA who already had these resources. And that was kind of like, I was like, okay, it's really hard for me to get in through the front door. Like, let's see if I can open a window or go to like the side door where no one else is trying, and like really stand out that way. So even through that, like through resumes, like I did have some experience like through internships, but something wasn't clicking. And I was like, I know I have to like either call them or like meet with them directly or like find another way. So that was always super helpful. And like those people really stood out to me even more, just like sitting on the other side of that, being like, wow, they're really here and like are hungry enough to really get to that point. So I feel like those are the people too who reach out to me directly that I see. I'm like, okay, like I love this. And also like love that you didn't graduate from like the major schools that had these opportunities. Like I can tell you're like really hungry for this.
Yeah, I was gonna just add on to that too. Like, if you can get the opportunity to be face to face with somebody, like they're going to remember you. Like, we have interns that come in, like, again, if you can try and get your foot in the door and everything, like Shannon said, however you can possibly get there, admin position, internship, whatever. Once you're in, I have interns reach out that are really interested in booking, and they're like, "Can I get a coffee with you someday?" And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And they want to talk about their passion and what they're excited about and what, feels like they're interested in. And I can give them my experience. And then I also just have this memory of them for when another opportunity comes in. So, like, really doing your best to just reach out to people in whatever network or connections that you've made and just like try and get face to face contact with them because I think they'll remember you.
And I'll second that. I think like also what's really cool is in this day and age, like when and a lot of us when we were in school, like LinkedIn wasn't what it was now. Like it's such an amazing tool that you have to use. And when I first wanted to get into music, I was doing simultaneously two things. One, I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I didn't let my ego get involved and was like, I worked and ticketing at multiple venues. I did VIP for suites at another venue. I literally did anything and everything. I did street teams for the venue off of campus just so that I could meet other people. And it's not necessarily did I do those things to try to put those on my resume, but you have to realize the people that are in charge of those positions have those titles in those other companies that you're actually hoping to work for. So like that it does get you exactly what Shannon and Jen were saying with like that FaceTime with them and those moments to like create recognition. And so I started doing that, and then I was that same moment that I mentioned initially where I was like at Lollapalooza and just being like, well, how does this work? I went online and I Googled after and I looked at who was running like all the hospitality. And it was a woman that I just started cold emailing literally probably weekly for months. And finally, she was like, you are insane and you are literally blowing up my inbox. Fine. I'll let you literally help me do admin stuff. And the first time I helped her, she was like, you are terrible at this. And she was like, you're messing it all up, but I'll help you because I was just so dedicated to it. And I ended up working with her for years. And, same as Kristina, like she was somebody for me that was like, apply to this role. You're underqualified, but you've got this, like, just do this. And I think that the best thing you can do is not necessarily always just what you put on your resume, but who you can reach out to empower you to get into a place to be seen. And then at that point, using your voice to be heard and make impact because there is no job too small. You never know who you're going to meet. And especially for women, as we all know, like if you were to reach out to us and let us know that you're going for something at the company and like you've been working your butt off and you really want support, a lot of us are really willing to champion you because we want more people like that in our space. So just remember that, a DM on a platform like LinkedIn where we might have not had that before goes a long way. I still utilize it now and reach out to other women trying to do cool things because we're all still feeling that same energy. So, just use all the tools, gain all the experience, make all the connections.
I'm also a heavy advocate of cold outreach. It's how I got my job at Spotify. I think approaching it just with, like Simonne said, absolutely no ego is so key. Um, I think that it's, of course, great and exciting to get like the sexy internships at the labels and at the big promoters and producers and at management companies. But at the end of the day, if that's like not an option for you, you just need to figure out a way to, like I think it was Jen, get in the window. I mean, if that means volunteering at a local radio station, if that means working at, a local record store, I sound so old, but, you know, working at, the venues in your town, on shows, volunteering to be a brand ambassador, whatever it is, there really is no job too small. And if you are showing up with a great attitude and like a willingness to learn, and a hunger, I think that people recognize that and can appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. So for our last question that I want to get into before I open it up to the audience is I know that networking is also very important, and we've touched on, connections and reaching out to people and, face-to-face interaction. What would you guys say are some do's and don'ts when making these connections? What do you guys think that are some things when you see people, who are starting to get into the industry, if they do them, you're like, that's not the best decision. You might want to try to do something different. And Jen, I can open up with you if you like.
Sure. I think it's so hard to answer because it completely depends on the person. Like how Simone was saying, she was like hitting that person up every day. And some people could have just been like, no, I'm not answering. And but that woman did, and she like took her under her wing. So it's hard to say do and don't do something firmly. But I do think that, you know, at the end of the day, really approaching it not from any ego, like from a willingness to learn is for me kind of the most important thing, like a passion and just like a kindness. Because if somebody's like, I really love this, like this is all I want to do. And, we've been in this year or this industry like a decade or how long, you can get a little jaded. And so you see somebody that's just so excited. I just want to help them. Like I want to foster their excitement and like get them into learning about all of these different fields that you don't even know about. Because I mean, I worked at a venue, and then I worked in management, and then I worked at an agency, and now I'm a promoter. Like you don't know where you can go, and you don't know what you might end up loving. So I think that making the connections that you can, and then just trying to learn as much as you can about what that person does and what they recommend you could do based on your passions or interests. I think that for me, again, somebody hitting me up to just go and have a conversation, get a coffee, get a drink or a lunch, I'm always down for that because it's informal. We can chat. I can learn about them. They can learn about me. And that kind of works. If somebody's always emailing me, just because we all get an insane amount of emails a day, it can sometimes get lost. So I think that it doesn't mean don't do it, but it just means if you're not getting any response by it, pivot, like see another way you can get a hold of that person or another person, make a connection with them and be like, I really wanted to talk with them. Do you know the best way to get a hold of them? Just like really being scrappy about it. And then again, but never from a place of ego. Don't think that you deserve anything or whatever based on your education or whatever. Just try and go in it and learn as much as you can and be open.
I feel like a big do in that vein too is that you need to be tailoring your outreach to the person you're reaching out to. I cannot tell you how many overtly BCC emails I receive around internship season of people asking to learn more about a certain internship position. And to me, I always kind of gloss right over those because I want an intern who is going to put the effort in to learn about me, learn about my background, take the time to craft an email or a DM or whatever it is, letting me know that they did take that time and um, no one wants to feel like they're one on a list of 100 BCCs. It doesn't matter how experienced you are. So that's a big mistake I see a lot of young people making is just um, not really taking the time to uh, pay close attention to how they do that outreach.
I agree so hard with that. I think I like ChatGPT, but I think there's such thing as too much ChatGPT. And if you're sending this like robotic message, it just comes off so impersonal. And it's tough. And at the end of the day, like we're all people. We're all people who love music, who want to work in this industry, and there's no secret sauce or like perfect way to hit someone up. I think it's like what Jen said is like everyone's different and maybe you'll get a response, maybe you won't. I think my dues are like shoot your shot. If you don't ask, you don't get. Follow up. I've definitely nailed some great opportunities and conversations through like one follow-up or two follow-ups. Maybe not excessively, but it seemed to work for Simone, so maybe it's fine. Um, and then similar to what everyone's been saying is don't treat networking as exclusively transactional. Um, and also don't underestimate the power of networking laterally. I think some of the best opportunities can come from people and your peers who are at the same stage as you.
I agree with that. I think there's literally, and I am so guilty of probably being the opposite of this later in my career, but I definitely took advantage of it. so much early on, especially when I first moved to LA. I had been in music for a while, but I moved out here with another company that I was at to open their West Coast division. And I didn't know anybody here except my clients. And I was very embarrassed about that in the beginning because like I knew people that I worked with, but like I didn't really have a collective community. And I was in Denver before, and the mentality is just very different. Music in different places within the country has different experiences. New York and LA obviously are two like powerhouses where there's just a lot of people, a lot of traffic, and a lot of people in town with certain intentions. So the vibe at different things were always changing. And in Denver, it was very community based. Like every single person there knew each other, everybody supported each other. I moved to LA, and it's every man for himself, and it was very very intense when I first moved here. But I got online and asked friends of friends and other colleagues, people that I knew, and just like, what are women music meetups? Like, where can I go? And some places I met some of the most amazing people. Some places I met kind of irrelevant connections if for job purposes, but people that I absolutely still adore. And I think you just never kind of know who's in a similar position as you. We're all kind of fighting the same fight and on this like very weird journey trying to navigate. And I think taking advantage of all those situations are just super key.
Thank you, guys. So now I'm going to open it up to the audience, and I'm going to just pick off a few questions from the Q&A. So the first one that I want to get into is from Caroline Mongio. I apologize if I mispronounce your name, but she wanted to know, when you were trying to build a business slash lead within the music industry, how do you best balance a day job while pursuing your dreams and goals? So, Kristina, I would love to have you answer this one first, if you don't mind.
Yes. Sorry, I'm looking for it so I can read it again.
It's a little farther down.
Dang it, I can't find it.
Is it
Well,
asking like a day job, like once you're in the industry, or like you're not in it yet?
Not in
And
it
then,
yet, like
mm,
when
okay.
you're first getting, like first creating that business.
yes. Oh, that is something I have a lot of experience in. So I started Amplify Her Voice. Well, actually, let's go back to 2019. Uh, I was a part-time student. I was working at Live Nation. Um, I was working at this place called Milkboy Art House, which isn't around anymore, but it was a venue right off the campus of UMD. I don't even know what's there now. And I was just going ham trying to get as much music experience as I could. And then I started Amplify Her Voice um, the month I graduated college in 2019. Um, and it is and still is really hard to balance having a full-time job and wanting to pursue like the general music industry and also building Amplify Her Voice and trying to create events and opportunities and community. And people ask a lot how to balance both, and I really don't know. I think to me, Amplify Her Voice is like just my heart and soul. I love it. There's nothing I dislike about it. I love creating programs and creating content and connecting with different people in the music industry and partnering and chatting about it. It's like, it's so fun. And I think when you have something that you truly love and feel so passionate about, I think it really turns you into just this passion fueled, I don't know, ball of energy. That's how I feel when it comes to Amplify Her Voice. But at the same time, like I think my dream would be to have my own company one day, ideally in the live music sphere. Um, but I am just not a risk taker. I don't want to go off and try to figure things out without having a deep, deep, deep understanding of the industry. And I think to do that, I need to work a full-time job in music. So I work currently at Live Nation. I previously was at Golden Voice, and I feel like everything I learn just adds so much to me personally and to my journey in developing Amplify Her Voice. I don't know if that's answering the question, honestly. But it's hard. Like it is hard to balance. I've had to give up a lot of social time and free time, but it doesn't feel like giving anything up because I love it so much. So, um, sorry, last thing I'll say about balance is rest is productive and necessary for success. That is something that took me a while. I was going through cycles for the last 6 years of juggling Amplify and a full-time job and everything. And I would get so burnt out like by the end of the year and just have to reset my life in different ways. And um, I think I've learned over the last couple of years how important rest is, especially as a more like introverted person. Like after this, I'm probably gonna take an edible and catch up on Severance, like and just not talk to anybody for the rest of the night. Um, but do what makes you like function as best as possible.
I think also having balance gives you perspective because I think when I first got out of college and was going into this industry, I mean, I was just like, I'll do whatever. Like I'm at the office from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. I'm out at shows afterwards. And it's important because you have so much energy and you just want to make all the connections you possibly can and like do whatever is asked of you and learn as much as you can to keep moving up. And that was great. I don't regret it. I think it's perfect, especially for your 20s when you're getting into it. But I think as the years have gone on and as I've had different experiences, I've realized the importance of balance because you can realize you can almost like learn more about what you're capable of because you're giving yourself time to rest and you're giving yourself time to really think about what makes you happy. And again, it all comes in time, but just don't underestimate not burning yourself out. And then you're 25 and you're like, I can't do this anymore because I'm just a stressed out mess and I don't even know why I started. Like, know that you're not alone in feeling that because we probably all have. We're just like, what is this insane industry that we still voluntarily love to do every day? But having rest and really learning a balance, I think makes you more confident as a person in what you do, gives you new ideas, new perspectives. So don't take that for granted.
And definitely just do all the things, especially while you have the energy. I mean, really, you don't underestimate the fact that you do have the energy right now that you don't have later. And I mean, I nannied full time, and then I also worked at multiple venues, and I also did internships, and I also was in school trying to be a part of the music program that didn't exist. And I did all the things, and it was really tiring. But I will say over and over again, and I'm sure every person on this panel would agree that you can learn as much as you want in school, but your experience is really where you learn everything. Your own opinion about what you want to do, your own confidence behind your knowledge in the industry and your ability to move. And so just be willing to do all the things and know that you're not doing it out of anywhere that it's going to just provide so much more growth for yourself later. And when you're down the line, when you're tired, you'll be able to find those moments of rest because you'll have put in the hard work and people will have seen it. Like I've definitely had people, want to work with me or, learn under me that have I've experienced them saying maybe a little too much like pride in where their boundary lies before they really have had enough experience, I feel like, to say that because as any of us on this panel know, because I've heard them all talk about all the things that they've done, we still have that can-do attitude and no task, at least for myself, is too small. Like, I as management, we have our hands in everything. If there is somebody that's dropping the ball, I'm going to jump in and do it so that the team still and the machine still rolls. And I would never approach something and say, that's not my job. I don't do that anymore. Like that's not the attitude you want. You won't be successful in your own business, in your career. You want to be able to have your hands on everything and be able to problem solve. Like that's going to make you the most successful person in the room. So I think learn all the things while you have the energy, step back later when you have the experience, and then be able to just provide endless amounts of knowledge as you grow in this business.
Thank you guys. Did anybody else have anything else to say before I go to the next question? No? Okay. So the next one I want to get into is from Tomorrow Tandreu. And so her question is, in addition to marketing strategies, within A&R, when artists are still building their social media presence and brand identity, I believe she's asking what methods or forms of communication are preferred. And I can repeat the question if it was a little bit confusing. Do you want me to repeat it? So she's asking, as like an A&R professional, when rolling out campaigns for their clients in an industry where everyone is trying to get their music listened to, are there any methods or forms of communication that are preferred? And then which marketing strategies tend to resonate most with A&R when an artist is still building their social media presence and brand identity? And I'll open it up to anybody who would like to answer this one first.
Yeah, I guess I would say as an A&R too, and on the publishing side, who's always looking for new artists and writers and producers to sign. Honestly, yeah, I guess Instagram, TikTok is also a great way to post content. I think as an artist, yeah, always be posting. That's the most essential thing. And like be really smart about, what you post, be consistent. I guess it is a little bit different with producers and writers, but again, I think just like being consistent with your brand and making sure like um what you want to work on, who you're working with too, and if you're collaborating, it's always important to put that out as well. But yeah, I think social media is like an easy, like non-expensive way to keep putting your brand out and having people look for it because it's it's super useful for us to even see like who's in the room with who. Sometimes I'll go in like rabbit holes and like people who are even like tagged with certain people in sessions that I see like from stories too. So I think that's always the best and like non-expensive way.
I'm going to add for management because I get a lot of writers and producers sending their stuff hoping to get the artists that I represent to work on them. And this goes back to something that Carly was saying, like do not BCC 100 managers and send something that's a blanket. It's so annoying. And honestly, it makes people ignore what you're doing because it feels like you're not understanding at all the room that you're trying to get into. And each artist, each producer, each writer, just like you have a style, they have a style. So like spend the extra time tailoring what's in that Dropbox to what artist you're sending it to. Write something and make it clear that you know what artist you're sending it to, because there are artists that do want to work with fresh producers and put fresh writers in the room and bring new perspective, because there is a lot of, you know, I would say incestual things that happen in the industry with people that kind of keep circulating, which is amazing, but finding new energy and new talent is always awesome and really fun. But if we receive something and it feels like you're just out to the world with the same Dropbox, it's really unappealing, and it really just makes it feel like we don't have the time to sift through 100 things, as somebody that's not necessarily an A&R, that's not doing that most of the time. But if I do feel like you spent the time to tailor it and you were working on something and you do feel like it would fit, and address it, whether or not you're open to changes or, can separate the beat from the lyrics, all the things like those are super important. And I think just making sure that all of that is super clear when you reach out, and you'll have a lot more success.
Also, just another quick thing to add too, like even on Instagram, it's always a good sign, at least for me, when I see mutuals of followers, like when they DM me and then I always just like check. It's just like normal too. Like if someone were to cold DM you like a friend of a friend, it's like, oh, I kind of like want to see like who we have in common. So even, or like reaching out to kind of like other people in that circle is always helpful too.
Thank you, guys. So this is the last question I'll ask for right now. This one is by Sophia Zaleton, and she has a question for Catherine. Her first question was, how do you find your corporate contacts?
Did you say context or contacts?
Contacts.
Oh, contacts.
Contacts, yes.
Yeah. So I guess I should maybe a little bit clarify. So I don't work on the sales side of our partnership team, so I'm not actively selling. However, the way that we talk about things internally, and because we are interacting so much with these brand partners and then all of our internal stakeholders that work on all these festivals, we are salespeople without having to like actively pitch, if that makes sense. I work alongside a sales team that actually goes out and actively pitches to brands. For some of the festival properties that we all work on, there are ones where like every single brand like wants to be on it because they're just super, super familiar with it. The festival brand itself is very well known. And so like every single brand might want to be on it. For other shows where it's like, perhaps it's either not as known or the audience might be very, very like niche and specific. A lot of times, what happens, again, because we work so closely with the sales team, we'll like pitch stuff to them. We'll be like, hey, we have this idea for XYZ brand to come onto the show because we've noticed that over the last 2 years, the fans are doing this, this, and this. I was in the Reddit thread for 2 hours last night and I was picking out these comments of brands that kept coming up. And a lot of it ends up being like LinkedIn research, Instagram, again, Reddit. I like to like lurk in Reddit, not necessarily for contacts, but like for ideas. There's such an amazing subculture around music, and around like different things that like music touches that I'm trying to be a student of all of that as much as I can, especially if it's for a genre that I'm personally not connected to. So like for a stagecoach. Before I started this job, I didn't know much about country music. I myself had a lot of like incorrect assumptions about the genre and like who the listeners were and what they were doing. And having that first experience working at that show led me to be like, oh, I'm curious about this. I noticed that people who attended this artist set seem to be really into these types of fashions. And then you're like doing LinkedIn research and all that kind of stuff. And then in my case, again, because I'm not a salesperson, I'm just like sliding some information to the people who can like actually get it across the finish line. Which I'm really grateful to have a really good relationship with a lot of our sales team, and everyone that I work with does. And so, yeah, I guess to summarize, I would say a lot of online lurking, LinkedIn, which a lot of folks on the panel today have mentioned. So definitely getting on LinkedIn. Instagram was one that came up a lot. And then believe it or not, Reddit, there's a lot of, I know it gets like a bad rap sometimes, but there's a lot of good stuff in there. You gotta like dig through it. Like it's like thrifting. It's like the internet version of thrifting.
I ironically sat on a sponsorship sales team, so I can answer this question if we have the time. I used to sit on sponsorships over at Founders Entertainment, which is an arm of Live Nation. I think they're actually under C3 now, but we produced and promoted the Governor's Ball. We were a super small, scrappy team, and the way we did it was exactly what Catherine said. I mean, it's a ton of LinkedIn research. So going to the brand's LinkedIn page, looking at who works there and typing in things like, um, marketing director, marketing manager, just gathering as many contacts as you possibly can. And another tool I really like, which might not be kosher, but I'm not totally sure, is Rocket Reach, which is great for finding people's emails once you do have their name and their company. I would use that and just collect a Rolodex of contacts to reach out to. Again, like Catherine said, come up with ideas that were specific to that brand and conduct outreach that way. So sending an introduction that wasn't just, hey, we want you to sponsor the festival. It was, hey, here's what we think would be a great way for you to activate at the festival. Let's chat more over a call. And then from there, we would structure a custom deck that would outline kind of what we could do for them, our, investment tiers, and just really construct a bespoke partnership package based on that brand, their KPIs, and then, of course, the festival's own demographic.
Something tiny to add to that. I'm new to partnerships in the partnership field, but Amplify Her Voice over the last 3 years has worked alongside All Things Go Music Festival in DC to help them secure partnership. And it's been a learning curve, and it's been a lot of outreach and a lot of cold emailing. And I think last year we reached out to like 100+ brands, and we heard back. I don't even know how many we heard back from, but we nailed down 4 of them. And it's a lot of rejection, a lot of not answering. And I think we don't have any like pre-existing contacts either. We're really just like shooting our shot. But it's how we get some of our programs sponsored. It's how we've helped All Things Go secure sponsorship. I think last year we secured about $130,000, which to me sounds pretty good. I'm like, that sounds great. But yeah, it's interesting. And like, I don't know, I wasn't sure if I should say this as advice, but sometimes an email you can just kind of pick together, first name, last name, whatever. That has worked like more times than I care to admit. Um, do I recommend that? I don't know, but that's where we're at.
Okay, well, thank you, ladies, so much for your time and coming on and giving us your advice and your insights into the music industry. I want to thank you guys all for joining tonight. And we do have all of you guys' LinkedIn linked below in the chats as well for you guys to look at. So that will wrap up our panel for tonight. And I want to thank you all for joining and to have a great rest of your night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Bye, guys.